the Super Bowl. Let's bring my boy in. Philly 500.
I'm not over nothing. I'm not over nothing, Dan.
Hey, he was so aggravated with the Super Bowl. He had to take a vacation last week.
I had to go to Florida. Yeah, I had to get the hell out. Somebody had to go to Disney
as all
World,
the East
right?
Coast guys would say, hey, where'd you go for vacation? Florida.
Yeah, somebody had to go to Disney World. It wasn't my Eagles. Now I had business. I was all business, man. No pleasure, all business. Unfortunately,
tell me what your takeaways were from Super Bowl 57.
My number one fear going into the season came to fruition. I feel like Jonathan Gannon and that defense came one stop away from winning the Super Bowl. I think you get one stop in the second half, you win the Super Bowl. It came back and it bit us in the butt. It really bit us in the butt. There was a lot of different things that happened. There were a lot of opportunities for the Eagles to have, going up big in that game, right? You talk about the Hurts fumble. I thought the Devonta Smith overturned catch I thought that was a bad call. If you get 7 points going into halftime instead of 3, that might have been a big thing. But at the end of the day, you were up, 24-14, and you could not get one stop defensively in the second half. To me, that's what cost them the game.
How about the Quez Watkins drop?
Yeah, I mean, that's another one. That was right in his hands. I don't know if Jalen Hurts could throw a better pass than that. And he drops it. I mean, it was brutal.
I'll say this to you that, and I'll reiterate on it. I think Hurts was spectacular. He really was. Outside of the fumble, he's switching hands. That could happen to anybody at any time. No excuses, no off ramp. And Obviously that was one of the plays that cost them was that turnover because it was a scoop and score. But again, too, you know what was missed on that? The face mask. You talk about the holding that they had that Bradbury said, but if you go back and watch that play, I think this was one of the worst officiated Super Bowls I've ever seen. And again, I don't want to sound like, sour cheese here, or I don't want to sound like that. But to me, it was a blatant face mask. And again, say it was the 5-yarder. That still nullifies the scoop and score.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I thought it was badly officiated too. I thought some of those calls they were big calls. To me, that the hold with James Bradbury, maybe technically it's a hold, but man, I don't know how you call that in the Super Bowl with that time left. You could call a penalty. Let's face it. Every play we could find someone who's committing a penalty somewhere and call it. I just thought that was a horrible call. It's not why the Eagles lost, though. I got to say, I still think it comes down to the fact that defense could not get one stop. Even the Jalen Hurts fumble that was a touchdown, the Eagles made up for it. They went down, they got the ball back, and they scored. They were up 10 at halftime. So to me, at the end of the day, I just really think that they got out-coached. I thought they made no good adjustments. And I thought Jonathan Gannon, what we worried about with him, came back and bit us.
I'll say this to you. I think that was the best coaching I've ever seen Andy Reid coach, especially in the second half. He was spectacular. And to your point about Patrick Mahomes, he was 90% in the second half. Philly, the only reason he wasn't 100% is because he had a throwaway. They could not stop him. That kid, Isaiah Pacheco, had a huge game. Nobody could cover him. I thought the secondary was confused because they were trying to pass off and they were running crossing routes. It confused them. Gannon was just so out-coached in that game. And it's not a shocker. It's Reid. It's Mahomes. That was my takeaway from that game, too. And what really sucks is it was right there. It's in your hand. It's right there.
I know.
And I'm going to say this to you, Philly. I don't know if Jalen Hurts will ever have a better roster in his time in Philadelphia ever again, like what he had in 2022. And I'm going to make a comparison to you. Early in Russell Wilson's career, he had the Legion of Boom. He had Marshawn Lynch. He had a great offensive line. Well, once they started paying him, That thing started
Yeah.
disintegrating, and they never got back to an NFC championship game after those two they went to. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a whole different look over these next couple months here. And that was kind of my takeaway. With all that being said now, what's your biggest concern in the offseason?
Just how do you keep all that talent, or how do you replace it? That is my biggest concern. I think the Eagles need to be bold this all season. Like, I think you can't sit back and say, well, we're just going to sign this guy, and we're going to just try to replace where we can. Like, I think they need to do something very aggressive, something bold, something out of the box, something we're not thinking of. Because when they do that, they go to the Super Bowl. If you look at 2016, right? I was thinking about this the other day. You look at 2016, that all season. They were very aggressive. They went out, got Alshon Jeffrey, right? They were aggressive in going out, up and getting Carson Wentz. They did a lot of things outside the box. They go and they win a Super Bowl. You go into last all season. They did a lot of things that people weren't expecting. A lot of things out of the box, like going and getting A.J. Brown, getting Hassan Reddick. I think that when they're bold, and especially Howie, when that front office is aggressive and they do things like that, they go to Super Bowls. So I think it's going to require some outside of the box type thinking, because obviously, you only have so much money. You got to pay Hurts. You got to do all these things. But I think they need to do something, and I don't know what, a little different than what they did last year.
How about bringing in Rex Ryan as your defensive coordinator?
Done. Done.
Well, that's outside the box. I mean, I'll tell you something about Rex. Rex is a very aggressive, and you may not like him as a head coach, but take a look at any. Now, he's been out of the game since 16, which is a bit, but I'll say this to you, dude. You bring a guy like that into your defense, and you put a guy like that as your defensive coordinator, you're going to have a top 5 unit.
Yeah. I mean,
love Rex Ryan. If you think Dan Quinn's good, see, Philly, and I like your thinking, because outside the box, you're not going to have the same personnel on defense. So you know what you have to have? You better have a coordinator that knows how to take chicken shit and turn it into chicken soup. Because if you don't, Howie's not going to be able to go to the ice cream stand and get Joseph and Sue next year, because if you pay Hurts, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I would love Ryan. Absolutely love him. Just the fact that he's, Buddy Ryan's son, I would love to bring him back. But will they do that? I have no idea. They haven't even interviewed him. But I do think that they got to. I think they got to stay aggressive, and I think they're going to do some things we don't expect. I just don't know what they are yet.
Would you go after Jalen Ramsey?
Possibly. I'd have to look at his numbers, but I think something like you have said in the past, where maybe you see a surprise trade, like a Darius Slay gets traded or something. Like I think that they have a good nucleus, but you got a lot of guys to replace, and you can't replace them all. So the question is what they're going to do. I don't know.
Trade Slay, rework his contract before you trade him, so it won't be that much of a cap hit. Sign Jesse Bates.
Yeah, you could. You could.
Not so much that player, but that kind of stuff is what you're talking about,
right? Yeah, I think they're going to have to do. I think everybody expects them to try to sign the guys that they have and bring as many guys back as they can, and they expect them to give Jalen Hurts the big contract. I think that's okay, but I think it's not enough. I think you need to do something that'll give you it may give your team a different look than last year, but I think something aggressive, I think something outside the box is what we need.
I had Seth Joyner on with me a couple days ago. Seth said that if he was given a conversation, he would talk to them about being the defensive coordinator, and he was on for about an hour and a half, Philly. And then we got him to say this, that if the circumstances were good, I would love to I would even consider taking a linebacker job. Do you think that's kind of outside the box too? Having a guy like that, being able to teach a guy like Nakobe Dean, boy, I'll tell you what, I don't think you can have enough experienced guys around young players to help them form what it takes to play in this league. Would you be for or against having a guy like Seth in the organization and working on the defensive side?
I would be all for it. I think Seth Joyner would be absolutely perfect. I was listening to that interview. So yeah, I remember what he was talking about. I would love to have Seth Joyner. Are you kidding? That would be absolutely great.
I do too, man. I at least get an idea of where he's going here. Hey, prior to you coming on, I had a list here, and as you know, the combines are starting on Monday. All the guys, I think 365, I think, show up in Indianapolis.
Mm.
Then on March 15th, that's when free agency starts. I said this, and before I give you a couple names here, do you think the Jalen Hurts deal gets done before March 15th? And I'll say this to you because it sets up your roster, what you can do free agency, what you're doing with your own team, and also kind of sets up your draft a little bit because it gives you the parameter of how much money you have to spend. And it will tell us a little bit more if they're far apart or they're close, because right now we're not hearing anything. To me, that's a good sign. That means they're probably working on framework. I'm thinking it probably gets done before March 15th. Where are you on this?
Yeah, I think it's going to get done. I think it's going to get done. And I think it's going to be structured, knowing Howie, I think it'll be structured in such a way that it won't hurt us this year against the cap, that it'll give us flexibility this year. So I trust Howie in that situation. I definitely think it's going to get done. But I got to tell you, when you hear things like Daniel Jones wants $45 million, which is a total joke. I mean, if he's getting $45 million, what do you got to give Hurts? It's got to be over $50 million.
Get this. There's somebody saying 7 years at $200 million, which would be 38 annually. I said this in New York the other day, and I told Craig Carton this. Man, if you're talking about $38 million, why don't you just go sign Derek Carr? He's better. I mean, I'm not spending that kind of money on a guy. I mean, do you know he's got almost identical numbers to Mitchell Trubisky?
No, but I'm not surprised.
That's who you're giving $200 million to is Mitchell Trubisky.
Right.
I don't see it, dude. And if you're an Eagle fan, you're like, hey, be another decade of the Giants being stupid.
Yeah, absolutely, do it. I would love to see 10 years. Give him a 10-year deal. I would love it. He stinks. Daniel Jones stinks.
He does, man. That's a 1-year flop coming there big time. All right, let me give you a couple names here. There's 9 guys that are on the top 100 top free agents. You're going to shit a brick where these guys are ranked.
Okay.
Javon Hargrave's number 3. This ain't me. This is heading into free agency, which means this. He's going to make between 6 or offered. He's going to be offered. And Minnesota, Chicago's got $94 million in cap space. New England's even in the mix for him. I know there's a 3-year, $51 million deal, but that's a little light in the purse strings here. Could you see Howie paying between $16 and $18 million for a defensive tackle that's marginal against the run, heck of a pass rusher? I mean,
I can. Yeah, I can. I mean, he's paid.
Now he gave Fletcher
Cox
14 last year.
Yeah, so he gave Fletcher Cox a lot of money. I could see it. I could definitely see it. I would say yes. I can see that. I would say yes.
He's 30.
Yeah, that may be the. No, I still see it. I think they would do it, especially if they're going to lose Fletcher Cox. I think they do it. Yeah.
Number 10 is Jason Kelce. Does he retire or come back? This is crazy. The only reason Kelsey's not higher on this list, I think, is because he is 36. Can you imagine
I think
if he went on the open market,
back.
Philly, he could probably get $15 million on a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah.
And I mean, but he wants to stay. I believe he don't want to go anywhere. He wants to be part of the organization. Do you think he plays or comes back?
I think he comes back. I think he's coming back. And I don't think he'll go anywhere else. I think he wants to be in Philly. I think he's just that type of guy. So I think Kelsey's coming back.
Bradbury's the number 13 highest rated defensive player. I think the only reason he's rated higher over Chauncey Gardner is because it's a cornerback position versus a free safety. Now we're talking in between 16 and $18 million for a guy who had a Pro Bowl type season. You see the Eagles paying between 16 and $18 million for him.
No, because if it was just him and Slay wasn't on the team, I would say yeah. But I think the fact that you already have Slay, I don't think so. I think he's gone. I hate to say I really want him back.
Pick, you think with that 10th pick, they probably slide into a corner at that 10th pick?
Corner or defensive end? Right. I think a defensive end or a corner they're going to go. But here's the thing. Everybody's talking about them staying at 10 or trading back. What if they trade up? Like, nobody's talking about what if there's a premier person up in the top 5
There's
that they
two
want?
defensive ones,
Maybe,
Will Anderson and
maybe
Kid Carter
you go
from Georgia.
Well, maybe that's the outside the box thing right there. You got 2 first-round picks. Maybe you go up and you get somebody like that.
So wait a minute. Watch this. So you get the Kid Carter from Georgia. You got Jordan Davis and you got Nakobe Dean. Then you hire the coordinator at Georgia who
there you go.
And by the way, I know that people look around and go, what does a coordinator in college know about the NFL? Here's where the secret sauce is in that. Philly, think about all the players in the United States that he's been recruiting over the last 7 years for Kirby Smart. He knows guys all over the league and guys that are in the current draft and guys that are going to be in the next 3 drafts. His knowledge of all the players that Howie could go to and go, what do you make of this guy? The only reason he's not a first rounder is because he's not 6'5", he's 6 foot. This guy's a really good player. We recruited him. I love the kid. And now he's being talked about. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying he knows any more than, say, a Leonard or a Gannon, but I'm saying he knows more about the personnel that's coming up and in the league currently.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And we have to hit on our picks. I mean, that's when you're going to lose the amount of free agents you're going to lose. You've got to hit on your picks.
Chauncey Gardner at 18, you think he goes 14-4?
Yeah, he's coming back. I think of all the guys that
safety, you're going to pay almost $15 million.
I think he's coming back. I think a lot of it has to do with age, but I do think he's coming back, and I do think they'll pay him.
26. How about Edwards at number 25? I'm really shocked he's this high. That's between $5 and I would say $8 million.
Yeah, that's a tough one because if you look at the history of the Eagles past, they don't like paying linebackers. So I'm going to say he goes. I'm going to say he's going.
That's right. It's not on money. Here are the money positions. Philly, this is why you're here, and this is why I like you. You know the money positions: corner, pass rusher, receiver, O-line, quarterback. Those are your money positions. The rest of them, you can fill them in. I mean, we were talking about linebackers. Think about this, Philly. Outside of Roquan Smith and Fred Warner in San Francisco, who are the big-time money guys making linebacker? I mean, Bobby Wagner's not even making gigantic money in Los Angeles. So, I mean, that position has lost so much value. Yeah. It's like running back.
I agree. Yeah.
I should say a model. The market is going to be – dude, 30 teams could have him on. But he's going to cost you $14 to $15 million.
I think he's gone. And it's going to be interesting if Kelsey comes back, if they'll move Juergens, if they think Juergens can play guard. That would be interesting to me.
How about this one? If you're the Eagles, you could lose your center and your right guard.
Right.
I mean, and your running back. You got 3 quality guys, three quality starters that could be taken off that offense. The number one thing you want to do is continue the development of Jalen Hurts.
Right.
This is kind of like what I was talking to you about, Russell Wilson, starting to take components away from him and chipping away at that. That's chipping away at that. So I would think the Eagles if they would beg Kelsey to come back another year.
Yeah, I think I think so. I do think he's going to come back. I just got
I
this
do
feeling
too.
he's going to come back. So what I'm curious about is Jurgens, because I think Jurgens is a big time player. So do they think he can play right guard for a year? Because if so, then you slide him right into say a Malu's spot, and you're good to go.
Miles Sanders, kind of a cryptic tweet he put out there that he wants back. Hey, would you pay a guy that had 1,300 yards, $20 million over 4 years? It's $5 a year.
$5 a year? Yeah, maybe $5 a year. But I don't know.
See,
I
he's
don't
going
think
to be
Miles
more
come back.
valuable. Philly, he's going to be more valuable somewhere else, though, not here.
Right. The thing with Miles is the way that they kind of use him, and to me, a lot of times they underuse him. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to pay him. I would like to bring Miles back if he wants to come back for the right price, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Brandon Graham, number 61.
I bring him back. I know he's older. I know, but I think he'll take a team-friendly deal is what my hope is. Also, I just think he means so much to that team, as a leader defensively, that if I can get him back, I would.
How about this? Then I'll put them all into a last question here for you. How important is it bringing Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelce back? Because those are leaders in your locker room.
Right.
Those three guys, and I'm not talking pick one or the other. I'm saying,
right.
Do you think it's a priority for Howie and Nick and all those guys to have some kind of continuity with the players that have been through the ups and downs of the organization, know what it's about to be the Philly way, and it's a priority that somehow to try to bring those three guys back, especially when you got a ton of new faces potentially showing up on the defensive side?
Yeah, perhaps. I think so. But I really think Fletcher Cox is not going to be back. Like, I think Kelce, he's still playing at a high level. Brandon Graham's coming off his best year. I think Fletcher Cox isn't the same player he was a few years ago. And I think the Eagles need to be very careful, too, because if you remember, after they won the Super Bowl, they signed a lot of guys back, a lot of guys that were older and really, at the end of their career, and it kind of hurt us for a few years. So I think you have to have some turnover. I think Graham comes back, and I think Kelce, because they still play at a high level. I'm not sure Fletcher Cox does. Especially this, too, Dan. You have Hargrave and you have Jordan Davis. You just traded up. You drafted a 13th pick overall. You took Jordan Davis. You kind of need him to take over for Fletcher Cox.
You think Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean are ready?
No, I think maybe with one good offseason, maybe they will. My hope is that Jordan Davis will improve greatly as a pass rusher this offseason, because to me, he's got to become a better pass rusher, and he's got to be in better shape. I think Nakobe Dean, I think one good offseason, I think he can play. I think he can play where TJ Edwards was.
You know what, though, Philly? I think it's important who's in front of him. And here's why I say that. Nakobe Dean was a star at Georgia when you had Walker, Carter, Davis,
right,
all of them enormous and super talented guys, and he was able to scrape lane it, which means go up and down the sideline and play with those big horses in front of him. I think Milton Williams is a good ball player. I think he improved a lot. He showed me he can play. There's some talent there. I mean, I like the kid. He's a frontline type kid. But if you don't have big dudes that could keep that kid clean,
right?
I think one of the reasons why people in the NFL had issues about Nakobe Dean was his health and whether or not he could sustain playing 17 games. So I think it's I think that's part of the reason why they're probably talking to the DC at Georgia.
Yeah, maybe. I think that would be a very interesting hiring if they do. But yeah, I think based upon the way the Eagles pay the linebackers and stuff in the past, the fact that they took him, there's a third round, I think he's going to get a shot. Now, is he ready or not? We'll find out. But I think he's going to get an opportunity to play this year.
I do too. Man, it's going to be great. March 15th, we got the combines on Monday, then the April draft. Dude, we're right around the corner again, man. I can't. Hey, okay, so do they give Hurts $50 million?
Yeah. I think he's going to get it. But I think, like I said, I think it's going to be set up in a way that it won't kill us against the cap this year. That's the one thing that Howie's good at, manipulating that cap, manipulating the number. Every year, I can tell you, I hear people tell me the Eagles can't do nothing. They got no room. They got no money. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 Howie Roseman goes to work, and we got 30 million here, 40 million there. So I think they'll be able to do it. But if I can structure that deal so it does not hurt me next year, then hopefully you can bring some guys back.
Philly, thank you, man. A lot of fun, my friend. Hey, don't forget to check Philly 500 on his podcast. It's one of the best there is out there. Just take a look at Brad Pitt. That's his clone right there, Brad Pitt. So make sure you watch his podcast.
Denzel Washington, but Brad Pitt's close enough. Denzel Washington, but Brad Pitt's close enough. I'll take it,
Brother, I appreciate it, man. We'll catch you down the line.
Right,
got it. Please. That's my friend. Please hit the like button. We're going to take a timeout. Keep it here on the National Football Show.